Thank you. Good afternoon. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees by video conference to order. A quorum of board members is present. Thank you for joining us today. On March the 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow for video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Today, members of the board are meeting in a central location. We do have Reverend Urban joining us via Zoom. Reverend, can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
All right, wanted to make sure we had you get a good connection.
Yes.
And quorum in attendance. We are meeting by use of Zoom software, which allows two-way communication for members of the public. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who follow the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak for the public comment will have that opportunity. If you would like to provide a comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference, please follow the instructions on the meeting notice. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practical. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be made available to the public at a later date. Zoom software allows for people to view and interact. We apologize in advance for any unforeseen technical difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate those. If you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. As a reminder, this is an agenda review meeting. No action will be taken today. First item on our agenda today is public comment. We did not receive any requests to address the board as outlined in the meeting notice. That'll take us to our agenda review of the consent agenda. Were there any questions or corrections to the board meeting minutes? Hearing none, we will move to business office reports. Mrs. Barbarick.
Good afternoon, board members, President Fitch, Dr. Trujillo. I would like to begin with our budget amendments. And you will find those beginning on page 21. Our first amendment is a request to move funds to pay for band instruments for $18,161. Our second budget amendment is a request to move funds that were donated to pay for the wrap of the band truck for $8,756. Our third amendment is budgeting the funds we received from the Temple Foundation for summer school for $30,000. Our fourth amendment, D, is moving funds for general office supplies for $458. Amendment E is our, I call this my semi-annual adjustment for TRS on behalf, which is on paper expense only. Our revenue always equals our expense, and I'm just allocating it to the different functions based on salaries. And the final amendment is to purchase window coverings at BQJ, moving their funds from function 33 into 23. Do you have any questions on these budget amendments?
Yes, ma'am. I have a comment and a question. My comment is, we must be very grateful to TLL Temple Foundation for their donation of $30,000.
Yes.
And I make a suggestion, if it's possible, once in a while, on a memo we'd send on a Facebook, recognize their contribution people who do, because it encourages other people as well, other organizations. And the question that I have on item F, it says move fund from purchase window covering for BQJ. What is that window covering? Is it something?
They are graphics that they purchased for their main entrance.
Okay,
I believe to make it more inviting for parents and visitors coming in.
yes. Okay, my interpretation was totally different. That's why the question arises. I was going to say, what is the window covering? Is it something inside or outside, protective windows or what? But question was answered. Thank you.
Okay,
Well, I just had a question, Ms. Barber. Those graphics, they're gonna be placed on the inside of the windows or on the outside?
I don't know that answer.
Okay,
I can answer that just because I've seen it.
okay,
I was just gonna let you know, it's almost like a film that's placed on the windows and it has graphics that relates to NISD and the Dragons. So people coming up to the building can't necessarily see inside, but if you're standing on the other side, you can see out. Also, it serves as, almost a window tint so that it doesn't get as hot in the foyer. It looks very nice, super nice. And I just wanted to make a comment about the $30,000 received from the Temple Foundation. That was a grant application that Dr. Corley submitted earlier this semester. And so that we are recipients of the $30,000 from a grant application to help with third grade summer school.
That's great. Thank you.
And to the question, it is on the inside of the window,
yeah,
so it protects it. We can still clean and do everything on the outside.
thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Next, I would like to move on to our investments, which are on page 27. My normal skill at this time is that we are earning very little. Any questions on the investments?
I'm just curious has there been some thought or has there been any discussion anywhere where that might change down the road sometime soon where we could start earning more interest on our investments? I mean, is there anything around that you've heard or?
I've heard for a while now that interest rates are going up, but that has yet to happen.
Hasn't happened?
So, I don't know.
Okay.
Always hopeful though.
It's set by it all bounces off the treasury and
Yeah.
the feds do.
Well, just with everything going up and all that stuff.
Thank you for all the interest that you captured when you could.
All right, I would like to move on to our donations under $2,500. That begins on page 29. We received a donation of $1,000 for a scholarship from Michael and Deborah Moses. We also received a donation of $375 for Fair Books from Talisha Berry, and donation of $35.20 for school supplies from Kroger, as well as a donation of 4 bikes with helmets for a reading initiative from Knights of Pythias, and a donation of toothbrush kits from the Cushing Masonic Lodge.
Wonderful.
And I will now take questions on anything else you may have on the business office reports.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Barbarick. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right, hearing no additional questions on the business office reports, that'll take us to item C, purchases over $25,000. Item 1, CDWG. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, members of the board, Dr. Trujillo. Administration is recommending purchasing 169 surveillance cameras from CDWG. The purchase will enhance our safety and security to our district facilities. We are looking at putting out 125 brand new cameras and having 44 replacement and spare cameras to replace broken cameras, and also to have a few spares on hand when those cameras go out, so that we don't have to wait. All of this purchase is through a grant funded through TEA, a safety and security grant that our police department, Chief Murray and her team went out and secured last year. Be happy to entertain any questions you all may have.
The only question I have, Mr. Martin, is will that grant cover the full cost of those cameras and upgrades?
Yes, sir. It will, and it will cover the cost of the cameras as well as the cost of the installation for the cameras.
Cool.
Mr. Martin, I was hoping that those cameras would record exactly what goes on in every playing field and the practice field, because during the weekends, I've noticed when I walk, I notice some people jumping over the fence, they go, and we can stop that. Also on the practice field, very important. As you know, sometimes the kids get Friday nights, go over there, make some donuts on the practice fields.
Yes, sir. I have a list of where those cameras will be placed, but it can't be discussed in open session because of safety and security.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Roman, Mr. Martin,
Yes, sir.
the warranty on these cameras is how long? And when we replace malfunctioning cameras, do we do that or do we pay somebody? We have an internal person to do that. And are they trained?
We have an internal person delegated to replace the cameras that are broken. The initial configuration of those cameras, we usually hire, because there are so many. In this case, we contract out to get those. The general warranty on the cameras, your second question or your first question, Dr. Groman, is 3 years.
Any additional questions? I would just add, I know we commended Dr. Corley for her work in writing that grant for summer school, and I'd like to take the same opportunity and commend Chief Murray for seeking these grant funds out to help enhance our security.
Indeed.
All right, that'll take us to item C2, absolute technology. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, President Fitch, Board, Dr. Trujillo. Again, administration is going to recommend using absolute technology to install 125 Cat6 network drops and the surveillance cameras throughout the district. The budget impact for this would be $28,125. Again, we have our own personnel, own staff, but because this is such a large project and we want to get it in before the end of the school year, we are requesting to contract out. All of this is covered by the grant funds, again, secured by Chief Murray, her team, and the business office. And we ask the board's approval to move forward with the project.
Any additional questions on this item?
I just like to know, those cameras that we have, the recordings, how long that recordings last for purpose of investigation?
Approximately 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If there's no further discussions, we'll move to item D, allotment antiques certification for 2021-2022. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Trujillo, and good afternoon. This is an annual approval process. In order for us to spend our IMA or instructional materials allotment monies, we must state that we are following and aligning our resources to the current Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for the text. So I did want to point out that it probably looks a little different than it has in the past. In the past, it's just been a one sheet document with a series of check boxes. However, this year's form has gone electronic, and you've got a copy of it or a semblance of a copy of it in your board book. You'll note the differences where it's dividing and looking at the 4 different core areas. And we're also having to select from a drop-down menu and tell TEA the resources that we currently are using. And so that's how you'll see it formatted. And then once you guys approve it, then we will submit the form electronically. And I believe President Fitch, as being the president of the board, your name and contact information will also go in with the form. So I'll entertain any questions you guys may have.
Oh, and these are all texts and material that we already have, and we're just letting TEA know what we're using. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And some proposed, expenditures for future reference. So for example, like on the Reading This app, you'll see Fontes and Pinnell. We've had a series of expenditures that we've brought to you guys, and we'll continue to bring some more, probably another large purchase for Fontes and Pinnell materials at the June board meeting.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, that will move us to the agenda review of our discussion action agenda. Item 4A is the Year of the Teacher Incentive Resolution. Dr. Trujillo.
President Fitch and board, I'm excited to present something to you for your consideration. The Texas Education Agency honors 40 regional teachers of the year, each fall resulting from nominations submitted by the independent school districts across the state and administered by the Texas Association of School Administrators. Nacogdoches ISD teachers have traditionally participated in the Teacher of the Year nomination process, where 1 elementary and 1 secondary teacher selected from each school district as a consideration for the contest. For the 2021 school year, the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees have chosen to recognize the particular difficulty posed by teachers during the 2021 school year by honoring all teachers with the Teacher of the Year recognition rather than participation in the Teacher of the Year program. Nacogdoches ISD wishes to provide each teacher with a one-time $150 incentive for their continued service to the students and the community in order to demonstrate support for its employees' commitment to the provision of the quality education, enhance employee morale, and support the retention of skilled educators. The incentive payment of $150 shall be used to purchase consumable school supplies or other instructional materials. If you would look into your folder, in there, in the blue tab, is the resolution that has been submitted for your consideration. And I'll read it here. Is whereas the Nacogdoches Independent School District Board of Trustees adopted a resolution in December 14, 2020, approving a one-time retention incentive for full-time and part-time employees. And whereas the district adopted its 2021 budget in June 2020, which provided funds for compensation plans when, at the time of approval, plans for the school year in response to the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic were unsure and uncertain in many respects, including especially the duties and responsibilities of targeted staff members in COVID-19 prevention, mitigation, and responses actions, in addition to all usual duties. And whereas in addition to recognition for extra duty performed by employees, the district also desires to recognize additional costs borne by teachers related to the educational supplies, material to ensure classroom safety during the pandemic, including sanitation supplies, personal protective equipment, and teachers have and will continue to purchase with their personal funds. Whereas the board wishes to extend its December 14, 2020 resolution to include recognition of out-of-pocket expenses paid by classroom educators during this tumultuous and unpredictable year. And whereas the board believes that the classroom teachers of Nacogdoches ISD have gone above and beyond responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, ensuring the continuity of instructional programming in a safe environment for all district students. And whereas the Board of Trustees of Nacogdoches ISD desires to recognize the particular difficulties posed to teachers during the 2020-2021 school year by honoring all classroom teachers with the Year of the Teacher recognition. And whereas to recognize the recognition of these unforeseen personal costs borne by educators, Nacogdoches ISD desires to provide each certified classroom teacher with a one-time payment of $150 to represent appreciation for unforeseen expenses borne by educators, as well as to ensure the NISD teachers have funds available to purchase future supplies and equipment for their classrooms. And whereas there is a significant public purpose for the district to ensure that it continues to retain quality educators and ensure job satisfaction and productivity, especially during this extended time of COVID-19 response, in order to safely and effectively serve all students. And whereas the superintendent has determined that there are funds available in the 2020-2021 budget for the district to make each payment to classroom teachers. Now, therefore, be it resolved, all the above referenced paragraphs are incorporated into and made as part of this resolution, including incorporation of the December 14th, 2020 resolution of the board, and the board extends its prior resolutions to include a one-time payment of $150 to each NISD certified classroom teacher, and the superintendent has the authority and discretion to implement this resolution in accordance with the terms to cause the payment to be distributed to each teacher.
Wonderful.
Dr. Trujillo, I would just like to say that the $150, and we all know, is not a large amount, but it's something that I haven't seen in over 20 years since I've been in an ISD, where teachers were given any help with supplies, because we always had to hustle their supplies for them, and they put it above and beyond out of their pocket. So, you know, I think this is really nice for us to be able to do this for our teachers, and I think it'll mean a lot to a lot of teachers. I really do.
Thank you, sir.
We love our professional dragon teachers.
Any additional comments or questions? All right. I am really excited that we're able to do this, and thank you for your prudent budgeting throughout the year. It's been a difficult and challenging year, but I'm thankful we've got some funds available and are able to disseminate those back to the classroom. Exactly. I think that's the heart and soul of this board, is we want to put as many resources as possible into the students and teachers' hands.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. That's going to take us to item 4B, consideration of delinquent tax attorney selection criteria. And that's Dr. Trujillo again. Thank you, sir.
President Fitch and board, the contract between Nacogdoches ISD and Karzynski Bradshaw LLP for the collection of delinquent taxes is set to expire. NISD has sent Karzynski Bradshaw LLP a 30-day termination letter to be effective June 30th, 2021. The administration is recommending the attached criteria to be used in selecting the future delinquent tax collection service provider. And those items that we're looking at criteria is basically the same criteria that was established when we initially selected the current assessor. And so we want to keep it consistent. And I will read those aloud. The first one is the evaluation of the process or programs the respondent would use in delinquent tax collection. The second would be evaluate the proposed contract and the model for respondents' fees and expenses. The third would be evaluate the experience and qualifications of the lead attorney and staff working on the Nacogdoches ISD tax collection. The fourth one, evaluate the key personnel located in Nacogdoches County. And the final one would evaluate the respondent's ability for tax litigation and any experience working with school districts. Those 5 criteria we would present to you to consider as we move forward with this recommendation.
Any questions or comments?
This, I'm sure there is a motive behind that, and there is absolutely nothing. There's no issue with the current attorney that we have. However, we'd like to go different directions. That's my understanding. We are in still very good term with the
Yes,
trustee and
yes, so this is our initial, we had the prior board, I think
Yes.
it was all previous to us had signed a 5-year contract.
yes.
It is now time to review and enter into a new agreement. They will have the opportunity to, what would you say, present a proposal
Yep.
as well as others. Any other questions? Any opposition to moving this item to consent agenda?
No, not at all.
All right. Holly, if we could please move this item up to consent. All right, that'll take us to item C, submission of attendance waivers to the Texas Education Agency. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon again, President Fitch, Board, Dr. Trujillo. As you're aware, anytime the local education agency has missed school days or changes from synchronous to asynchronous, the district or local education agency has to submit waivers. NISD is submitting 3 different waivers due to the winter weather emergency that we had in February. Waiver number 60019, which is Carpenter Elementary. Due to infrastructure failure, no water, no electricity, and no internet, Carpenter closed the campus and went 100% virtual instruction on February the 24th. The campus lost electricity due to the winter storm. The pipes were damaged and flooding occurred in numerous locations. Once the electricity was restored, the campus and plant services worked to clear the water and to get the classrooms ready for use. The second waiver that we have is TEA waiver 60179, McMichael Middle School. Many of you may have recalled that we got school started back that week. And McMichael, due to a water main valve failure, the campus was shut down on February 25th and 26th. Virtual instruction was then provided during those days that they were shut down face-to-face. And then we have TEA waiver number 60252, Nacogdoches ISD overall. Again, due to infrastructure failure issues created by the winter weather storm emergency, the campuses were not able to open for face-to-face instruction. The district went 100% virtual instruction February 22nd and 23rd. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question, and not reviewing these waivers, but how do the waivers work for summer school? Does that same policy exist for summer school? If we were to have something going on during summer school, say we had floods again and the kids couldn't go to summer school, do we have to apply for a waiver for that?
No,
It's not included.
no, we would not. It's during the academic year, the state requires a number of academic days for students to be in attendance for funding purposes.
Okay.
And contractual obligations for staff. We have a set number of days the staff have to work. I will tell our board and let our community know this is exciting, is if you'll remember early in the year, we communicated that the state no longer works on days, they look at minutes. And the infinite wisdom that we moved forward with in adding the minutes in preparation for COVID. And I will tell you what's interesting is we did not use a single one of those minutes for COVID on any site. We used them for better. And to the parents that are out there, this is exciting. We are scheduled to end the school year on the same day that we committed that we would end school because of those additional minutes we added. Whereas our friends around us possibly will be extending the days because they did not add some minutes. We did add the minutes. And so what's exciting is those family members that have made commitments and have obligations, travel or whatever they have to do, Nacogdoches ISD at this point is scheduled to end on the date that we said we were going to end. Even though we missed school on a number of occasions due to the weather, we had banked enough to use those days for our students. And also Dr. Hill and the principals and our teachers doing a tremendous job of the asynchronous instruction and keeping that moving forward. We were able to go straight into an asynchronous environment in situations, but not at the cost of not being able to feed our kids. So I wanted to say also to our nutrition services did a tremendous job. Sometimes within 24 hours or less, not knowing we were going to be in that campus, we made an obligation to make sure every family member had an opportunity to have access to food. All they'd have to do is come to a set location. So it was full fed all the way around. And when you look at this particular item, it's just so dynamic that it's easy to look at a waiver and not realize the magnitude of how many lives it touched and the choreograph that had to happen with this. So.
Well, I'd just like to say that I think it's commendable to you as a superintendent and your team to look at these things and make it the best possible solution for our students and the parents, because parents should be happy with the fact that their kids are gonna, well, maybe not, but they should be happy that school is on time. So you guys have done a tremendous job, and I applaud you guys for that, because that's really thinking ahead of things, and we like that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, would there be any opposition to moving this item to consent agenda? All right. Holly, please also move that item to consent agenda. All right, that carries us to item D, consideration of demographer services. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, President Fitch. If I may direct your attention to page 123. In preparation and planning for future movement of students as a result of the passage of the 2018 bond and subsequent opening of the new Carpenter Elementary, the merging of schools, administration recommends contracting with Templeton Demographics to assist with some projections of enrollment and some possible zoning changes that may need to take place as a result of our reconfiguration of schools. The estimated project cost is $30,000. In your packet, we included a tabulation of bid sheet and also some information about the recommendation Templeton. Also reference sheets from Templeton demographers for your viewing. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I do have a question. Now, is this plan that they give us will only be one plan? They won't give us options. It'll be like one way of doing this, or they'll give us more than one way?
No, so they will give us several options.
Okay.
We will do several community meetings with this group from Templeton. They will present to the board several times different plans for your approval.
Okay.
Mr. Martin, I may add to the board, President Finch board, Templeton is one of several vendors we looked at. We just didn't look at one. We looked at opportunities of individuals that have a reputation of doing very well-informed meetings for school boards, making sure they ask every question they can and feel sure that they can answer the questions that are there. The other thing is public meetings, being able to go out into the community and have conversations. This is going to be very, very dear to the hearts of our parents and our communities. We have set obligations, for instance, to our families that attend Carpenter. A commitment was made with regards to the families that attend Carpenter. These, the firms that we looked at, we gave them those plans, made sure that we knew we had non-negotiables that needed to be in the plan. The non-negotiable would be Carpenter families continuing to be able to attend Carpenter, but also look at the possibility of opening up and giving several other options, Mr. Matoya, like you're saying.
Yes.
And the options are also real time. So for instance, in conversations, if Dr. Groman would ask what would happen if we added this community over here, Templeton would be able to go in there and utilize their program and then put those groups of kids in that, so we can make an informed decision about what those lines and boundaries would look like. I will tell you that I have had experience working with Templeton in the past, and I was very impressed with the work that they presented. Matter of fact, it was at times could have been very confrontational, but they did such a tremendous job in presenting all of the facts and all of the opportunities and all the possibilities that the community and the board move full ahead with the decisions with regards to the direction we're going. So I just want to make sure you knew this was not a single vendor looking at, it was multiple individuals that were able to put in an item. And because of my interaction with Templeton and watching them do the tremendous work they've done with boards and with communities, I felt that would be a tremendous benefit to Nacogdoches as we navigate the next 18 months. And this is a time for us to really dive in and have some really good conversations for our students.
I have a question, probably our Madam President more informed. The district for voting would be also changed during the zoning.
No, I don't believe so. This is strictly with the zoning for students attending schools.
Yes.
And I know we've mentioned Carpenter here, but for full transparency, let's go a little broader and say, this is much larger than just expanding Carpenter. The number of students, the new Carpenter is going to house many more students than the current Carpenter accommodates. But this also encloses, you'll remember, part of the bond proposal was converting Mike Moses to an elementary school. So what students are going to be going to Mike Moses? It includes transitioning Fredonia into a pre-K. So those students will have to go to a different campus. Then you've got your Nettie Marshall plan there. So this is a district-wide redistricting of primarily our elementary schools, because McMichael, of course, will be the singular middle school.
I guess what I was asking is the zoning is specifically for participation on each campuses.
Yes, that's correct.
It does not change the districts that we represent.
Yes, that will be handled separately once census information is released. Both the city and the school district will have to look at the new census counts and doing a redistricting for those elected seats, but that will be separate and independent of this.
Good. Thank you.
This is Dr. Roman. I can say I reviewed the client list. There's small schools, large schools, fine schools. Even I noticed Duncanville and Grand Prairie were on there. So that tells me that they come with good credentials, and that way I think they'll do a good job for us.
Yes.
Particularly when they want to communicate with our community. I think that's of high importance.
Absolutely. I appreciate the fact that you've had previous experience with this group and have been pleased with their interaction. I think that goes a long way, because to me, that's going to be instrumental, hearing from and having the public input.
Absolutely. And President Finch, to Dr. Roman's point, not just the firm has that relationship. I personally know some of the superintendents. So as they've navigated this, there's also tremendous asset. And President Finch, you know how I love having conversations with all superintendents to figure out is what in recommendations, how do you have that when you have that dialogue with other superintendents that have actually dove into this? But it's critical because here in East Texas, we're different. Even though it's Duncanville and Grand Prairie, I know that Templeton will do a tremendous job in embracing our uniqueness as a community.
I think the number of their clients indicates their credibility as well.
Yes.
I had a question. I see one public meeting. Do they, tell me about that. They do all this on their software and stuff. They present some things to us, and then when we get kind of down the line, then do they listen to the public, or do they send out Just tell me about
Well,
that.
when they begin, they won't be actually a true number until the peak snapshot date, which would be in October. We are actually doing a tremendous thing coming in as early as we are, getting them set up, giving them the data. As soon as the board says, hey, let's get going, then we'll do a data dump. They'll be able to pull information, and then they'll start doing different scenarios based on that. Now, when we get to the public forums, it's all dependent on the superintendent and the community. So a lot of times when you don't see a meeting there, it may be the superintendent and the task force have gone out, which is what we have done in previous interactions. There are occasions, though, that you can actually take an individual like Templeton and have them side by side with the superintendent so they can actually present the numbers. Remember, they are presenting just the facts of the numbers. The actual superintendent and the team knows the community and we'll be able to hold more conversations and listening to folks. Then that team takes it back to Templeton and says, okay, let's adjust this and see what we have with numbers. When we look at campuses, it's not just campuses only. That's the biggest part of it. We're also looking at programming. So when we're looking at individual programming, the most efficient way to be able to do this is to look at how our programming is provided, even district-wide. That's how finite Templeton can get in there, is we can actually look at specific programs and are they housed in the most efficient location to meet the financial needs and obligations we have to our community, or are we creating unnecessary travel for our families and we're taxing the district with resources? So even though we're looking at major functions across the district, we are also going to get finite with programming and be able to pull that information. But we will give that information to Templeton, and Templeton will be able to put that information out for us, give it in a format. Now, they'll do a lot more presentations with the board, depending on how many times the board wants to hear the information in workshops or in open meetings that we can actually sit in there so the public can see the interaction.
Okay.
But going out to the public, I think the public wants to hear from Dr. Trujillo and wants to hear about what we're looking at and recommending out to the community. So I will pull them in as well if we need to. So
Well,
Dr. Roman, can you touch that screen for just a second? Yes.
yeah, so if they're doing all these, reports to
Yes.
us, the public can hear that. And then they can let us know if they want to, or if they're having problems with it. So we will get feedback other than
Oh,
this
absolutely.
formal meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And that's why we're
I
trying.
want them to be aware of that,
Oh, yes.
that they'll be in on the stages. and
Yeah,
stuff.
full transparency and as we're moving forward. This is one of those critical areas when you're dealing with attendance of campuses. So absolutely.
All right. Any additional questions or comments on this item? I do believe I would prefer to keep this on the action agenda. This is a significant, what would you say, a significant topic, and I could foresee the possibility that somebody come to the table with additional questions on Thursday.
I agree with that.
All right, so we'll leave that on the action agenda. All right, that carries us to item E, review and discussion of the NISD Board Operating Procedures Manual. I requested this item be put on our agenda. I think it's always good to put this in front of us at least once a year, following May elections, to give us an opportunity to review, update when necessary, but then also just kind of re-agree that these are the terms of which we're operating and how we're going to treat and respect and interact with one another and the staff. So I hope you've had an opportunity to look at those. I do think that this is probably an opportunity that we have to potentially do some updates. Dr. Groman, why don't you've had a thought of an update. Why don't we discuss it first?
Actually, I don't have that iPad that I sent you that information on,
All right,
but I have additional information to go with that.
okay. Well, in a second, I think I'll be able to pull that up.
It's on page 8. It's 2, Roman numeral 2. I think it's 552.
Are you talking about page 8 of the manual?
No, it's page 140.
It's E2, E2, 2E2. Roman number
Page
2,
eight.
E other considerations, number 2.
Very good memory. I was searching for it there. E2, E2 states, anonymous letters or communications will not be entertained during public comment, nor will complaints or criticisms about individual employees or board members. If such complaints are raised, the board president shall respectfully ask that person to stop speaking and to use the board's adopted policies and procedures for the redress of grievances. The board expects that request to be honored and that the person speaking about an employee, whether by name or otherwise, will stop when asked. And I believe your question revolved around legally, can we prevent someone in public comment stating a specific employee's name?
Yeah, I believe that comes up in a best practices. Many of us attended a workshop recently, and that was brought up. So we're all aware that basically we have to let them complain about us. And so that really does not allow in this policy. So we need to adjust that policy so that they feel like, okay, you can complain. You have a place where we will listen to you complain. And that gives them an outlet to have their complaint heard by all of us in public.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we had that, I'm sorry, I don't think we had that problem. We specifically said individuals or students.
Well, you know, the policy, I think, was developed because there have been times when a staff member has come to the podium during public comment and specifically named a specific employee that they had a problem with or disagreed with. I understand that the intent of best practices is that everyone should be given an opportunity to comment, and I wholeheartedly embrace that and have been a huge proponent of public comment. I may have a little different perspective on that, though. I think that an employee can come to the mic and have a public comment and air their concern without necessarily specifically calling out someone's by name, particularly if it's another teacher or staff. I don't know that that's healthy. You
Okay.
know.
Well, it's something
But
we as a
it's-
board, just,
Yes,
we should
absolutely.
review it.
Absolutely.
And I have, if I want to give other people time, but I want to give some other thoughts. I pulled up the board meetings, public participation for Tyler Independent School District. And one of the things they included is that this might prove beneficial in future meetings, that they may not accrue time from other speakers. You have 5 speakers, they only speak 30 seconds, and they give all their time to another person. We don't have that rule. That's something that's, I think, is astute or wise. We can decide if we want to do that. They say shall not use profane or vulgar language. And I would also, from me, I would add the word violent language. In other words, that's not their job to get up there and be profane, vulgar, or violent in their, this is a discourse of commentary. We don't have to change anything, but we should consider these things. And there's another one that shall stay in the designated location for speaking. We say it's supposed to, they come to the podium, but we don't say they must stay at the podium. So it's a more definitive, I mean, I'm just saying this is what they say. And
Sure.
I say that is be a possible addition. And what I'm bringing up might prove we need a committee or somebody who wants to work on this and really get the feelings of the whole board. And I have one final thing, well, 2 actually. They have a whole paragraph on disruption, and this is very important. I was at a city council meeting and there was disruption. So this is their policy. The board shall not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience. if after at least one warning from the presiding officer, any individual continues to disrupt the meeting by his or her words or actions, the presiding officer may request assistance from law enforcement officials to have the individual removed from the meeting. This seems radical, but in the day and age we live, I've seen this happen where actually the city council had to adopt something similar to this because of a bad thing. The other thing is, in one meeting I was at, there were people sitting on the floor and blocking the door. That definitely is against fire code. We don't have anything like that in our policy, that occupancy is limited to the number of seats available in the chambers, the boardroom. Because if we say it's limited to the number of seats, if it's COVID, then it's going to change the number. If it's not COVID, it's the number of seats is the number of people that fit in this room. If that's in conjunction with what the fire marshal says. But having people sit on the floor and stand up, and it's very disorderly and it's very dangerous. It's dangerous for everybody. And the thing about this whole thing about speech and all that, this is bad because we have children there. And this is not good practice to have stuff like this happen in front of our students and small children who come. So I'm just very passionate about this. That we be proactive and communicate. We want to make the best place possible for communication for the audience to us and us to the audience and us to our community. So these are just some ideas. We can do whatever. What the board wants to do is what we do.
Mr. Groban, I have attended a lot of board meetings as a former teacher, as an athletic director, which part of my responsibilities. I have been witness of many times people talk and collectively point at the board and their grievances toward the board. However, when it got to a certain individual, board president asked that individual do not mention the name or students as a teacher. So that was practice. I've also witnessed of a person who was kind of outrageous, but warning and security that campus police always provide was escorted out. So all of those things take action. However, when you go to the very detail, I would say never ride elevator. If I did that, never ride an elevator because everything could happen. So sometimes you have to give your community people enough credit, that enough educated, enough articulate, that they're not gonna stay over there and use provocative language. Existing policy that we have, I'm pretty much in favor of it. When you start tweaking it, you want to go farther. 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 All of a sudden, you write a book.
Sorry. All right. Maybeth?
I like our grievance plan, you know, that if we're gonna stand up there and complain and name names and stuff like that, we have a very good grievance policy. And that's true not just for employees, but community members and parents can go through that too. And because of that, I don't see that it's necessary to give a person their 3 minutes to say it, like, because sometimes you're just real hot-headed and you'll stand up and say all this stuff. Whereas if you're having to go through a grievance, it's a little bit more planned out, and you know, and if you don't like the outcome, you bump it up and bump it up, and you know. So I just think that's a little bit better.
Okay. Mindy?
So I don't disagree with what Dr. Groman's saying, because things are changing in our environment. So that, and I've watched some videos of some board meetings recently in other schools that have changed. Our dynamics have changed. However, I also see that it says that we will ask the person to stop and follow our policies. It doesn't eliminate them from being able to, but we've asked them to, and we're expecting that they'll respond in kind. And I know that I've attended some meetings here at Nagos before I was a trustee, and the board president did say, please stop using names, and that person did. And I think that our community is still, I think, gonna respect that. But the problem by not saying you can't name names is that you can destroy the opportunity for that person to have an effective grievance. So I think it's important that we have what we have in here. But I did kind of, I wrote down some of those things. I think it's something as we move forward, we definitely need to look and see how our future here goes with our public comment. I have seen people really plead their case, and I've been one of them who stood at the podium and played my case, and I followed the rules. And so I would like to think that our community will continue to do that, and we wouldn't have to do anything more. But I think it's definitely something we're putting on the parking lot to revisit, should we need to take a stronger action about it.
Wendy, if you allow the people to use individual's name, that maybe that his causal comments not substantiated, the person when you call the name would be decredited among some other people. So it's not fair to call a person's name.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
And that was my point.
Yes.
It does so much more damage to the complaint because you can't take it any further because now you violated the grievance process. So no, I'm not in favor of, I'm not saying you should be able to use names. I'm very, very much against that. And I think that we say that we're gonna request that they abide by those rules.
it could be verbally, by both president verbally
Right.
mentioned that through your presentation, you cannot name individual. Or you feel like they're going that direction, you can stop and say,
Right. Mr. Montoya, Reverend, get ready. You're after Mr. Montoya.
I'm going kind of what Coach says. I think, when you make the statement that we are doing public comment and they have 3 minutes and then set the parameters for, you will not use name calling, you have 3 minutes, we will not entertain aggressive behavior, all that kind of stuff. I think if we do that at the onset, because I'm like you, I feel very strongly people should have the right to make public comment. That is their right to do that. But not attacking either. I think that, we saw that a lot the last 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of attacking going on, and I just don't want that to happen. But I think people need the right to be able to express themselves, whatever concerns you about that.
Reverend, your thoughts?
Absolutely, I agree. Especially when it comes to district employee complaints. For us to get involved would move us out of our realm of operation, because that falls under the day-to-day operations of the district, which should be handled by the superintendent instead of the board. So I think the policy is in place for a reason. And then once they go through the right procedure, then it will come to the board by form of a grievance. And I think that's where we can address it better as a board.
Excellent. Sounds like we've got a pretty good consensus.
Can I just say, coming from that volatile time, and I was in the classroom at the time, it would be so helpful if, as a board, we remember, I know we all know this, that we just remember that when we hear or read an email or hear a complaint or something, that we direct them to the right process. They need to know that we heard them. And because that's when it gets out of hand, when there's no response and they get frustrated and they feel like no one is listening. But we have a very good process of grievance and how to go about that. But I don't think we need to limit it or open it up and say, yeah, go ahead and name names and stuff.
All right. I believe Mr. Nermont, you had some thoughts as well. On
here
the,
on,
switching subjects a little
Yeah.
bit, going to the goals that are listed on,
Lone Star Governance.
page 4.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
good. I had a question about that too.
Okay.
I was like, you don't know.
My question is very simple. It says on August 17, 2017, the following student outcome goals and progress measures were adopted. From then until the COVID-19, COVID-20, I guess, COVID-19 on 2020 started. I see those percentage. I just curiosity, was there any significant change within those percentage or just was some that, I know the number of students travel back and forth, different people come, different people go, so it's very hard to be exact. However, according to my statistic person said, if there is not standard deviation advancement is not significant. So I want to know if there was any changes that gives us a lot of hope between 2016 through 2020 or 2019. Is there anyone can respond to that?
Well, I can tell you the goals, the biggest change that we're looking at is what this slide has done to us.
Right.
And we don't have data that is being collected by the state. So it's been a reset all the way around. So the greatest information you could have received was whenever that was adopted then to 2018
Right.
and then to 2019. Unfortunately, I was not here. However, whatever those percentages were established at that point, the greatest concern that we have, not only in Nacogdoches, but across the state and across this country, is the slide that's happened across all populations. And when you put the strategic population, our special education, the ELL learners, the English language learners that are there, the pre-K program, it's hit and it's so diverse that we are going to have to reset that baseline to figure out where are we. But I will tell you, I am amazed by the work that our teachers are doing when you see them working with the students and you see them pulling in. It's not all doom and gloom, because the teachers were working extremely hard. Some of them last year, when 2019, whenever we had the COVID time hit, there were some principals that were excited about the work that they had done and the teachers' work that they had done, that we were going to get that leverage up. But what happened is, from March until the end of the year, it was so discombobulated with packets and which kids were coming, which kids were not. And then you went into summer and there was no summer school. And even though we could grab some kids and bring them back, it even complicates it. And now you start off in the fall and you put them, all the kids started off in a very dynamic situation, which was virtual. Teachers didn't have the content and how to deliver that instruction virtually. We didn't have the tools. So you're going to see a reset, coach, when it comes to it. And so those numbers, I can't speak to those because I don't have the numbers for 2017 to 2018 to 2018, 2019. Yeah. But having reset and looking at our numbers as we go into 2021 right. and going from 2021 to 22, that's why you'll see early on in the year, we presented a goal which was looking at aligning the literacy of what we're looking at with our kids, but looking at multiple years and making sure that we can see that there's measurable growth right. that's happening, even though it's 5 years out. What can we expect within the 1 year? And being realistic. What I don't want is our teachers to see a number right. and then they think, how in the world are we going to get there? I want them to see that we have manageable pieces as we're moving forward. I will tell you what the principals constantly hear me say. A lot of people say that they're data driven.
Yep. Should have some knowledge where we are, so follow up and make a new plan. And I know Dr. Hill presented a new plan, new percentage not long ago.
Yes.
I understand that with the COVID, there's no way you can figure all of that. But however, my concern was from 2016 to 2019. The record indicates or does not indicate that we had some good progress, realistic progress. That's what I was asking. My question was not pointed at anyone or any individual or any shortcoming. Just curiosity how much we improved. Because I know we lost a lot of students to another schools in the area. On the other side, we received a lot. I want to know that fluctuation makes a difference to the point that we have to take the blame or say we lost some good students. That's my question. I know it's very, very difficult to evaluate during this process that we're going through. It's almost impossible, frankly. But I appreciate your response, but absolutely not pointed at anyone or why not. I just want to know this changing, coming and going, the students, how much difference that's making all of that.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Because I had a concern about this too, and my question was gonna be, where do these numbers come from and what are we gonna do with them? And your answer was very good, but I went and looked up in our annual report and looked and compared through 2019. And not surprisingly, before COVID, we were not quite reaching, and in some areas in our IR schools, scary where we were again. But I'm happy to hear that we're going to reset, because we know that we really have no idea how horrible the slide is going to be, but we're going to find out. But I'm also really happy to hear you say that we're not that concerned with the data because as a former teacher, just to be honest with you, these were ridiculous. I mean, no one came to me and said, okay, now, you know, I want to see 27% improve. No teacher thinks that. And no teacher even thinks, okay, I've got this percentage that's really going to master and this percentage is going to fail. No, every 100% is going to improve. And because our teachers had that mindset, I appreciate that DSC needs to have that mindset too. Okay, how can we help them then improve? Now, having said that, we do need to evaluate where we are when we get all that information in, and then sit down and go, okay, what is a reasonable goal to set? And the only reason we want to do that is so that we can encourage ourselves with, we have made some improvement, or no, this isn't working, we're going to have to change. To me, that's the only purpose of these goals, is if we're not making them, then let's not continue to do what we are doing. Let's change.
And I will tell you this, what's exciting is back to the time that Coach was talking about. We were so driven on achievement, just achievement. Now we're able to look at the data and be able to report to the board and to the community, not only on achievement, but on growth measures.
Yes.
Because on growth measures is, how did this kid move? And when you have a special education teacher out there that is burning the candle on both ends, has a relationship with the family, and that kid does not reach that achievement line, that target that the state says you either pass or you fail. What's exciting is we're able to look at that child and say they were here, but they had growth. And the excitement is that the lenses as a board, as we're looking at this, is not concentrate on that target. The target is a wonderful thing, and there's where we want to go. But we also have individual students that are out there that teachers have worked tremendously hard, and they have the growth. So we have the growth measure that is in there and it's tabulated. The wonderful thing is the aggregate data looks at growth now and actually credits a teacher for the growth that you have for a student. Every kid needs to gain at least 1 point. And if you come back to school and you're that much better than you were when you came in, then we can get you there. The unfortunate thing is that we've got to identify what that baseline is. And once we identify that baseline, then everybody has the game plan and the rule book. And we can actually see where every kid, every student is of value. And I'm also talking about the top kids. We always talk about the kids that are out here, but those enrichment kids that are up here on the top end, if we're constantly talking about achievement and they're right here at this point, we want them to do amazing. So even when they're above that, we're not concentrating on achievement anymore for the top kids. We're looking at growth. So that top kid, did they grow even more and they're able to take and do amazing things. So growth is a tremendous measure to look at as we're aligning. And achievement was prior to the old instrument that we used, and the state in their infinite wisdom has allotted us to look at growth as well as achievement as we're looking at that. And then the final point is the last one, the CCMR, the college career military readiness. We got to stop thinking that that is just a high school opportunity. College career military readiness goes all the way down to the grades, to the lower grade levels. What are we doing to prepare these kids to go into the workforce, to go into college, to go in the direction that they want to go. And so we need to tap into that for our lower grades as well. It's an exciting time, but I will tell you the greatest thing that happened is the ESSER funds were there. That is why we talked about, let's make sure we get the funding that we need so that we can provide our tools with the resources, our teachers, with the resources and the tools that they need to have. But I will end on this note when I say this, the greatest resource we have that's out there in our classrooms is a living, breathing teacher. It's not the book, it's not the basal, it's not that, it's the teacher that's in the classroom. And what are we doing to help them make a commitment to Nacogdoches? And that commitment is in our kids. And our kids see that commitment, our families see it, and then we don't have this bleeding of kids leaving the district or even our wonderful teachers that we've invested in leaving the district. So I commend this board for what we've done since March. Since I arrived, our emphasis was on each one of those teachers to let them know you matter, we value you, and we see you as being the most important asset in the lives of each and every kid in Nacogdoches. So, and we're going to continue to do that. I see exciting things ahead. And what I want us to do is to keep looking forward and look at where we're going, not where we have been and what has happened behind us, because it's going to be exciting what we're able to do as a collective team of one.
I 100% agree and appreciate the direction you headed, but personally, the reason I asked you, because I don't believe those are statistics, to be honest, because it easily could be manipulated, could be presented, and there is not 100% to be verified. So later on, I explain why I don't believe in this science.
Well, one of the questions I was going to pose to the board regarding this section of our board policy is a few months ago, we adopted new goals. And you may recall they were kind of taking into consideration COVID, also under the realization that that could adjust a little bit as we come out and get these test scores from the spring to figure out where we're at from that slide. So one of my questions was going to be, would you like to direct staff to basically, take these goals from 2017 and update them with the new ones that we adopted here a few months ago?
Yes.
Excellent.
And
But wait, I'm sorry, but wait until we get the, star and all that, till we see where we are, and then let's adopt new goals.
Right. Well, we've already adopted those goals,
Well,
actually.
I know, but we don't have hard.
Well,
what I mean?
they're, well, they
I know,
forecasted,
we're gonna
they forecast
that we
out,
want
right,
this time increase.
right.
I kind of like to
And
know
we'll
where we're coming
regularly,
from first.
right, and we'll regularly come back and review those as the data becomes available, right.
I agree, but I mean, we did already adopt some, so I think that we do need to change this section out. That was a question I did have. But I kind of was like, Coach, I kind of wanted to see, I know in 16 we had a goal of this. What did we end up with? So that's the piece that I was curious about
Yeah,
for
but
what we know.
The annual report.
And that's where you got that.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
all that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
The taper,
I subscribe with Dr. Trujillo that level the rise, not necessarily statistically fit in there or not.
I appreciate what President Finch has mentioned and suggesting for the board to entertain. And the reason being is we are notorious. Every organization is. When they look at a set of goals for the board, it sits over here. And then we have a different operating procedures on goals that campuses are setting up and the district is setting up. And what we had done when we presented this to the board was, let's not have two different sets of rules. Let's have one set of rules and come together. And then what we did is put it in the reality of a baseline. I would caution us on waiting, because you're not going to get those data until almost 12 months from this year. The state is not releasing anything when it comes to data. The STAR tests were given to the campuses to use and the districts to use, but they're not providing hard fact data for another 12 months. And even then, they're evaluating what is that going to look like. So what we've done is we've actually established, based on our current assessments that we have in the district, and they've been aligned to the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And we don't wait for the STAR tests. I'm gonna tell you, if we wait for the STAR test to give us data, it's too late. We've got to have lead measures. Lead measures means we're looking at it right now. When you get in your car today, you look at your gas tank and it says you have a half a tank. We don't wait till we get empty. You got lead tags that are on your visor, on your dashboard that tell you immediately right now, what is this car doing that can make you feel really safe? So that's what we have in our classrooms, in our assessments. And that's how we establish those goals on hard fact lead measures right then and there on what our kids and campuses are doing. The most valuable resource is the teacher and the data they can collect. And that's how we set those numbers. Now, what we had done, because we knew we had a slide, and if you recall, we adjusted those so that you would see them and be able to look at incremental steps. I want the teachers to know we're looking at the steps in between, not the big numbers. The big numbers, if you say 25% growth, and the teachers are saying, my gosh, how am I gonna get 25% of my kids? No, it's what does that look like? Is it a 3% to get to this date in order to arrive where we need to arrive? What does that look like whenever we take it in small chunks? And so we have the data and we provided that baseline. I do agree with President Finch is take this out because these are numbers that you set out there and it's not aligned to what we're actually setting up on the campuses. And by the way, if you recall back in that meeting, we took that same rubric and we gave it to the campus principals. So they are actually having that same set of goals and designs. And so from the classrooms all the way up to the boardroom, we are looking at one set of goals, one set of data points that we can actually get to. So I support President Finch in the recommendation that we need to adjust this to reflect that. Absolutely.
Everybody comfortable with that? All right. I know that's not much time until we get Thursday. I think we can, but you've already got
Oh,
it.
it's
It's
done.
just, okay, yeah, it's already done. It's just kind of laying it in there.
Yeah, and Dr. Hill's actually on this call, so she's hearing us
All right.
at the conversation.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, any other thoughts or feedbacks on our board operating procedures?
I have a key thing to bring up.
Yes, absolutely, nothing is.
It's 9 in the board thing. I don't know what, I guess I would look it up. But it's just, it's on the voting. So it's Roman numeral 3.
All right.
And it's such a silly little thing that if we're gonna have it in here. C says that we're gonna vote by a show of hands, and we usually don't, we say aye. And so I'd either start voting by a show of hands or change this to aye.
This is true. And we did used to, before COVID, when we were in the boardroom, we did give a
Everybody
show
could
of
see,
hands,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And then when we went virtual with these, we've kind of moved away from that a little bit. And
You could say either a show of hands or
Or,
a verbal.
yeah, we
Yeah.
can do both.
Yep.
As directed by the president.
Yep.
Basically, that way you can do.
Just
it.
one more clarification. During the public comment, the comment should be related to the subject, to the agenda, or could be deferred from the agenda.
That is actually a separate policy. And my recollection is that we have changed that and at the, Holly, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've changed it a number of times. I believe the current policy is specific to an agenda item on special meetings, but at the regular meeting, it is open comment. Does not have to. Yes. Is that correct, Holly?
I think you are 100% right,
Okay.
but it's, the reason of question, it says, when an individual sign up, the individual must indicate the non-agenda topics.
Yeah, I think that's actually, public comments, one of those things it's discussed here.
Right.
It's also discussed in policy. I will make sure, I will ask Holly to review to make sure that what we've got here does not contradict what our actual operating policy is. Any other questions or thoughts? And then we're going to make that change to the voting section. All right.
Well, Ms. Fisher, I'm sorry.
Huh?
On page 140 also, it says, B says, at the regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comments regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with a notice of the meeting. So
Okay.
that was one.
There you go. Yep, there it is. All right. Anything else on this item? All right. Hearing none, that will take us to the next item on our agenda is executive closed session. The board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act and as allowed by Texas Government Code sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 1:23 p.m. We will return to open session no earlier than 2 p.m. The board is now reconvening into open session at 2:41 p.m. Are there any requests for future agenda items? All right, hearing none, that takes us to the final item on our agenda. Do I hear a motion?
This is Mindy. I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Mrs. Winslow. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Reverend. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for your time today.
Theater.